welcome to Digital Learning. I'm Connie Kolosey, the Director of Media Text and Digital Learning for Pinellas County Schools. In our episode today, I have Stacey, Pellerin-Vanderloop, and Alex Herren, and they're here to help me. We're going to talk today about a very important project in Pinellas County Schools, which is the installation of interactive technologies in all of our classrooms. This project, of course, is funded through the tax referendum, the generous help of our Pinellas County citizens. And we have this year installed already about 250 interactive projectors in middle and high school classrooms, and then there were many already in place. The project will continue next year, but we want to be sure that teachers have the information that they need to take advantage of this. And part of that, both Stacey and Alex are technology integration coordinators that are available to go into classrooms and assist teachers, and we're going to have them share some of their knowledge here on this program today. So Alex, you've been getting out and getting into schools and seeing teachers working with the interactives, and talk to me about your ideas for this project.
Well, the Epson projectors that we're going to look at today are really fantastic devices, and what's nice about them is that they can go right on top of an existing whiteboard, so teachers aren't losing the whiteboard space and to install a whole big to-do all up on the wall. And teachers really enjoy the interactivity, and they enjoy the fact that they can still keep their board space.
So we know, though, that when technology is fantastic when it works and when we know how to work it, and so you've seen some frustration.
A little bit, but it's growing pains. As with anything new, take a little bit of a learning curve to it. But the Epsons are pretty nice. I mean, they're pretty straightforward once you get the hang of the basics, and that's kind of what we look at today.
All right. So we have we filmed actually doing a little mini lesson on the Epson BrightLink projector, and we're going to cut to that now.
So today we're going to be looking at the Epson interactive projector, the BrightLink 695WI. Now, the projectors that a teacher might have in their classroom might have a little bit different model, but most of the features we're going to look at today are going to be the exact same regardless. One thing to look at when you're looking at your Epson projector to see which model you have is you can look right underneath the display and it'll say BrightLink, and then it'll say the model number. So in this case up here it says 695WI. That's for wireless and interactive. Now these interactive projectors support touch input and they support pen input. So I want to go over a few things to know when you first get your projector. So in terms of the hardware, one thing to notice is that unlike smart boards in the past, you probably still have your old dumb whiteboard installed in your classroom. You can still use the whiteboard functionality. The reason that works is this little box right here. Now this box shoots a laser across the entirety of the screen that actually reads your touch input. That allows me to use my finger to touch without actually having to install a full board on the screen. So one thing to look at when you're using your board is to make sure that that laser is completely unimpeded. Don't put any lights around your screen, don't put any sticky notes on your screen, because it'll mess with that touch input. So the other thing to note is that this display does come with some smart pens. I want to go over a couple of features of those pens before we get too far into the touch input. So you're going to get a little box like this that's got two pens in it. Now this box is magnetic, so if you have a whiteboard you can just stick it right up on, don't put it on the display. Like we said, we don't want to get in the way of the lasers, but we can put it off to the side just to let it sit on your board. So it comes with two of these little Epson pens. You'll notice one of them is orange and the other one is blue. Now those are not the colors that will actually show up on the board. Those are just to tell the board when you can set them to be different colors, and I'll show you that in just a minute. One thing to note when you get your interactive board, it's also going to come with rechargeable batteries and a rechargeable battery pack. Some people get this and they put it in a drawer and they immediately forget about it. These are just standard AA batteries, but it will save you a little bit of time later on, a little bit of money later on, if you remember that you can pull these batteries out and recharge them using the rechargeable battery pack. Just something to be aware of. So let me talk about the two different ways you're going to use this board. The first is interactive mode. This is what most people will use their board as. So interactive mode, I have a little box on the side here that has a mouse and a PC on it. That's interactive mode. What that means is that when I touch my screen, it's going to interact with what's on the screen. So for example, right here I'm using Smart Notebook. If I touch my screen, I can move things around on my screen. I could select the pen tools from Smart Notebook and start writing with those pen tools just like I would if I was, it's essentially working as though it was a mouse. It does recognize the different input devices as well. So right now I have a black pen selected with my finger, but if I were to use the pen tool and say use purple, it'll recognize purple for the pen tool, but it'll still recognize black for my finger. So you'll actually have 3 different colors you can select and 3 different pens you can select: the orange pen, the blue pen, and your finger. And the interactive Smart Notebook will recognize which one is which. So this is the interactive mode where I'm actually controlling my computer. I want to show you another mode, which is PC-free mode. So if I touch my screen here, I can flip over to the PC-free mode here. Now that's the one that looks like a little pen with a projector on the icon. This mode gives me a lot of options, and what you're going to notice here is when I touch my screen, I'm no longer interacting with Windows, with the actual software. I'm writing on top of it. So if I were to select, say, this red pen here, I'm actually writing on top of it. There's no way when I'm in PC-free mode to actually control my Windows machine. I'm not going to be able to close Windows or anything like that. So if you're trying to use your interactive projector and you're able to draw, but you can't close anything, you can't interact with the programs the way you expect to with a touchscreen, make sure you're not in PC-free annotation mode. Now, one of the nice things about PC-free mode is you actually don't even have to have a computer hooked up to use it. Let me show you what that looks like. So if I go to PC-free mode, there's this whiteboard icon at the top. So this little arrow will pull out my menu and I have all my different controls for my PC-free mode. If I go to that whiteboard, you can see I now have just a regular whiteboard. It's a digital whiteboard that I can use without having to have any computer connected to it. So I can chart a line here. I can change the color to, let's say, a black color. And I could draw on that board. Now, one of the neat things about this is it comes with several different preset backgrounds. So I can change my background from just a regular whiteboard to, say, graph paper. Now, I was a math teacher for a long time, so one thing I might use this for is if I'm just doing a lecture on how to do a coordinate plane. Now you can get very precise without having to worry about getting your computer set up, making sure Windows is working, all of those types of things. So this is PC-free annotation mode. It's really useful. You can change your colors of your markers. Again, with the orange marker and the blue marker, you can set each marker to have a different color. So if I were to pull out my blue marker here, I could say have my blue marker set to be, let's say my orange marker is red, and I'm going to set my blue marker. So I'm going to set my blue marker to be an eraser, for example. And you can see down here what each one is set to. So right now it says my orange marker is blue, my blue marker is my eraser, and my finger is also an eraser. That's just how it's set right now. If I wanted to change my finger to, say, a yellow highlighter, I would use my finger input, click the yellow highlighter, and now you can see now when I use my touch input, it's a yellow highlighter. So if I wanted to use I think I set my blue marker, so you can see again right here the blue marker. This is my eraser. It's going to erase what's on my screen. So this is the PC-free annotation mode, and again, this is completely independent of your computer. So this is useful, let's say if your computer is on the fritz or you just want to use this to do a lecture. So let's talk about some of the other tools that come with the Smart Interactive Notebook. I'm going to go back to my PC mode. So I'm controlling my PC now, my PC interactive mode. And I want to talk about this little menu right down here. So you might notice this little up arrow coming from the bottom of the screen. As a side note, let's say you wanted to see some of the pieces on your screen, you can move that around. So let's say I wanted to have it in a different part of my taskbar, I can move that around if I want to. So when I pull that menu up, it has a bunch of different menu options here. I want to go over some of the main useful ones for the teacher in the classroom. So the first one I think most teachers like is the freeze frame function. And you'll notice it does auto hide. So it's not going to take up your screen space all the time. So I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to click on it pretty quickly here. So I'm going to click the screen. I'm going to hit this pause button. Now when I hit the pause button, you can see the freeze logo comes up in the top corner. That means that what I am doing on my screen, right, what is showing on the screen is different than what I'm actually doing on my computer. So I could go check email on my computer, and my screen would show maybe an activity for my students to use. I can finish that by just clicking that pause button again, and now you can see that touch that I did just a moment ago now shows up. Let me actually go ahead and erase this. So right now, because I'm in PC mode, right, I'm actually interacting with the Smart Notebook software. This is not the projector doing this. This is just the Smart Notebook software that I'm writing on. If I were to go to, say, my web browser here, I have this article that I've pulled up, and I want to go through and I want to highlight on this article. Well, I have a couple different ways I can do that. I could use the tools that are built into Windows 10. I'm running Windows 10 right now, so there's some Windows 10 tools I could use. But even if you're not on Windows 10, with this projector, I can always go through and go into the annotation mode. So now that I'm in annotation mode, my projector is going to write over whatever's on the screen. So let me start by clearing this red ink from before. I kind of remembered that red ink. So I'm going to click this Erase All button. And it's going to ask me, do I want to delete all my annotations? So yes, I do. And now I might ask my students, so I've got my yellow highlighter for my finger input, and I say, okay, well, the number of female students taking advanced placement tests could be counted on one hand in 9 states. So I might want to highlight this information right here. So it allows me to annotate content and write on content and draw on content. And if I wanted to, I could even save this to my computer. I'd have to have some settings set up that don't really work with this setup, but it is possible to save your annotations as well. So let me go back to PC mode. So I'm going to change this back to PC mode. And I want to show you a couple of other features from this little Epson BrightLink toolbar here. So one of my favorite features, one of the coolest features for me, is that it comes with a built-in timer. So I can just hit this little button here, and it'll allow me to set a countdown timer. So I can set it for 1 or 2 minutes. I can set it for just 10 seconds here. And as soon as I click start, it's going to start counting down. You can also do it to count up if you're trying to time something. After the timer goes off, you'll hear the thing make a beep. So this is a valuable tool for a teacher who's in the middle of class, who wants to set a timer really quickly and doesn't want to have to mess around with pulling up a new web page or whatever kind of timer app they would use on their computer. You can also change the volume to make it a little quieter if you wanted to. And to close it, you just hit the close button. It is also possible to control your volume from here. So I could turn the volume down. Your Epson projector does have a speaker on it. So as long as you're connected to your projector with a audio jack, it's the same one you'd use for a pair of headphones, that has to be plugged into your projector and to your computer. Or if you're using HDMI, that also supports audio. That's a type of video plug that also supports audio input. You can use your projector as a speaker as well. So I can control my speaker volume from in these settings and turn that volume up or down if I want to. I want to really quickly go over a couple of things with the remote. The remote's very powerful, and sometimes it's a little easier than using these touch controls to do some of the same things. So for example, on your remote, one way you could access that freeze functionality that I mentioned earlier is to hit the little freeze button on the remote, and that will freeze the screen in the same way. You can also zoom in to certain parts with this E-zoom. So if I push the zoom button, it'll let me zoom in on the screen, and I can hit the left and right buttons on the remote to move around on the screen. So if I'm trying to focus on one part of the screen, I can use that as well. Another feature, you've got your volume buttons, same as you would normally expect it to do. That turns volume up and down. It also has a pointer, which is kind of neat. If I hit the pointer button, you can see there's a little blue pointer now. So I can walk around my classroom instead of having to be up at the board, which we try and avoid. We want to be walking around the classroom. I can use this to annotate things, and not to annotate, but to point out things on the screen just by holding the remote control. It has a lot of setting controls as well, so one thing you can do is change the pen mode. So this is probably one of the easiest things to use this for. You might have noticed as I'm clicking on here, sometimes I have to pull this menu up and switch back and forth. It's a little easier to use this pen mode button, and that just automatically will change from pre-annotation mode and back to PC interactive mode. So to recap, the number one most important thing when you're using your interactive smartboard, in my opinion, is to remember the difference between annotation mode, which is where you're writing over the screen and not controlling anything, that's PC-free annotation mode, and PC interactive mode, which is when you're going to actually control your computer. There's lots of things these projectors can do, and there's even more features that I wasn't able to get into today, but they're very, very powerful, and they can really improve your instructional practice if used the right way.
Alex, thank you very much. I think capturing that on video is going to be very helpful, and we're going to try to get that out and share that in a lot of places. I hope that you'll stay with us. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with Alex and Stacey a little bit more about the Epson BrightLink interactive project sponsored through the Pinellas County referendum. Stay tuned.